morning. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. We have two-in-one package for you. We're beginning with updates from the Nigeria Governors Forum that has now endorsed the revised value-added tax sharing formula in the proposed tax reform bills to ensure what they call equitable distribution of resources across the country. What will return after that conversation will turn our attention to corporate governance and how CSR and public partnership is key to national development. But everyone is talking about the NGF decision, which is considered a big shift. The decision was taken at the end of the sub-national consultations and engagement of the Presidential Tax Reform Committee yesterday. They did recommend that the sharing formula of VAT should be 50% based on equity, 30% based on derivation, and the other 20% based on consumption, based on population. The meeting was to deliberate on critical national issues, including the reform of Nigeria's fiscal policies and tax system. And that's where they agreed that there should be no increase in the VAT rate or reduction in corporate income tax at this time. The forum also advocated continued exemption of essential goods and agricultural produce from VAT in order to safeguard the welfare of citizens and promote agricultural productivity. The governors also did recommend that there should be no terminal clause for TETFund, NASENI, and NITA and the sharing of development levies in the bills. Another significant outcome of that meeting between the NGF and the Presidential Tax Reform Committee is the support for the continuation of the legislative process at the National Assembly that will culminate in the eventual passage of the tax reform bills. It's a big break considering how very controversial these bills were at the National Assembly last year. Joining me for this conversation is strategy and governance expert Yemi Makpaderu. Mr. Makpaderu, where have you been? Happy New Year. All right, we're going to keep tracking Mr. Makpaderu for some updates on this conversation. We're working on that connection as we speak, but it is now known what the governors want, especially where these bills are concerned. They have rejected the move to increase VAT from 7.5 to 10%. Recall that the bills as they are currently before the National Assembly is suggesting an increment from 7.5 to 10% in 2025 and a further increment in 2026, and by 2030 should have gone up as high as 35%. But they're saying as of today, considering the economic situation, there should be no increase in the VAT rate or reduction in corporate income tax at this time so that Nigeria can maintain some form of economic stability. The governors have also in some way endorsed the sharing of the VAT proceeds on the basis of 50% equity, which appears to be the big deal because this recommendation is looking at how derivation can get as much as 60%. So we wait to hear from Mr. President, even though we heard the Tax Reform Committee was also involved in this meeting, whether or not this is what the government can work with. That figure, 50%, is unchanged from what it is currently as regards what is currently in operation. They're talking about 30% derivation from 20% currently in operation and 60% that was proposed by the Presidential Tax Reform Committee. The governors also agreed on 20% sharing on population basis, and that's from 30%, which is the current allocation before the tax reform proposal. And it looks like perhaps they have met at the middle. Let's get back to Mr. Makpaderu, policy and strategist analyst. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Mr. Makpaderu. Happy New Year to you.
Good morning, Mr. Oguntoye. Happy New Year to you too. Happy New Year to our viewers.
I'm wondering where you have been. Is it that we haven't spoken on TV, or you have jackpot?
Well, I think I've also been doing some reforming. Let us put it at that.
Some personal reforms also.
Yes.
I want us to quickly take a look at the amendments that the governors have proposed and how you think they will significantly affect the tax reforms as we know them. They have rejected the move of increment from 7.5% to 10% where VAT is concerned. And they are saying that there also should not be a reduction in corporate income tax. What do you make of this amendment?
Well, first and foremost, let me say that I'm not surprised about the contestations and the arguments that were attended, the tax reform bills sent to the National Assembly by Mr. President. I mean, historically, issues of taxes are always very contentious. People don't want to pay tax, no matter how little it is. And that's why the little man in the Bible, Zacchaeus, was not a very popular man. So, having said that, I think the step taken by the Nigerian Governors Forum in consultation with the Presidential Committee on Tax, headed by Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, has gone a long way in simmering, the temperature in the polity arising from these tax reforms propositions by Mr. President. And of course, many of us lose sight of the fact that the tax reform bills are not just about VAT. They are actually far-reaching effort aimed at, making tax administration more less opaque, more transparent, and more efficient. And of course, with the resultant effect of improving, revenues accruing to government at all levels. However, the focus has been, practically almost exclusively on the issue of VAT. But with this proposal by the Nigerian Governors Forum, I believe that negotiations have only just begun, but it also portends some positive movement to a desired destination, in that practically every newspaper, every news outlet headlined that report, by saying Nigerian Governors Forum backs Tinubu tax reforms. That is partially true, because that is exactly what people are expecting. We want to move forward. I want to see that government at all levels cooperate in ensuring that the best, is done for the long-suffering Nigerians, and also to ensure that businesses thrive. Because when businesses thrive, being the engines of growth in any economy, there is a chance that there will be economic development,
Indeed.
and the welfare and the well-being of the people will be better taken care of. So, in a nutshell, I think the step taken by the Nigerian Governors Forum portends some positivity.
Wow. I like the way you put it, but it seems you are also treading cautiously that we may not have heard the last of this in the real sense of it. But the governors are now very quite obvious, I mean, what their stance is where proceeds of VAT is concerned, which apparently has been the most contentious part of this document, say for a few other components. They're asking for a basis of 50% equality. Prior to this time, the committee wanted as much as 60% derivation. Do you think this significantly changes the excitement, the concept of let the money go to where it's being made?
Oh, certainly, because what is being proposed is just half of what the NGF is proposing is just half of what the original proposal is in the bill. Of course, I know the drafters of the bill are also open to some level of negotiation. They will not have expected that everything that they present will be endorsed hook, line, and sinker. However, I think in a way, the NGF was also very careful not to upset the apple cart, so to speak, in terms of the feelings and expectations of states that are historically, the cooking jars for this VAT, Lagos, Rivers, Ogun, FCT, to some extent, Kaduna and Kano. by reversing, the sharing formula from 50% population to 50% equality, and then downgrading population to 20%. So in a way, there is an admission on the part of the NGF that there is a need to reward those centers where the VAT is generated without actually abandoning those that are not so as privileged or in real terms are not as creative, to generate this VAT. But like I said, this will only, enhance the journey of the bill through the National Assembly, where further deliberations will take place, where public hearings will hold, and whether what the governors are proposing will eventually cross the Rubicon remains to be seen. However, I think we should also be mindful of the fact that there is already a case, by Rivers and Lagos state government in the Supreme Court, which is pushing for the apex court to declare that, sales or consumption tax, is meant to be to belong to the state. And if that is done, it simply means that every state will retain what they generate. So while this consideration or this proposal by the NGF seem to be, seem to look a bit fair, and balanced, they must also reach out, to this state to ensure that they do not proceed, with this litigation at the Supreme Court, because that may actually throw everything into the trash.
So the governors have also recommended or endorsed, depending on which media you're watching or your understanding of it. They're talking about the bill section proposing the termination of funding for certain clauses, certain agencies rather, through the development levies that was initially suggested to be discarded. They're saying there should not be terminal clause for TED Fund, for Naseni and NIDA in the sharing of development levies. I'm sure you've heard from ASU. It's kicked against this particular provision, describing the plan as a threat to the survival of Nigerian universities. They are saying that the proposed Nigeria tax bill currently before the National Assembly is seeking to reduce TED Fund's share of the education tax, and that they are saying this is going to further impoverish that tertiary sector of education. I'm wondering what your thoughts are in this regard, because the initial plan would be that by 2030, TED Fund would be receiving absolutely nothing when it comes to levy.
Yes, one of the things that the first of the tax bills, I think that's the Nigerian tax, law, the proposed law, aims to address is actually to harmonize, the scores of multiplicity of taxes, at all levels. And when you also look at this in line with the Oronsaye report, you will find out that TED Fund, yes, TED Fund has been more or less a partner in especially infrastructural development in our universities in Nigeria. But my argument has always been that basically it's the federal universities and to some extent the state-owned universities that benefit from TED Fund. But when you look at an emerging trend in Nigeria, that is in terms of the private universities, you will see that these are universities that are not receiving any form of subvention from government, but they seem to be overtaking the traditional, universities in Nigeria in terms of development, in terms of performance, in terms of even in terms of profile. Having said that, I think it's not surprising that ASU is kicking against the provision of that bill that progressively removes TED fund from being beneficiaries of the education levy. In fact, what the bill is proposing is that 50% of what is generated, the 2%, is it 2.5, I don't 2% education tax or education levy should go to NEL fund. That is a newly created Nigerian Education Loan Fund. And again, I mean, it's just like taking money from one side of the same coin. This money is still going to the educational system. And in this case, I think it is even preferred by many that these monies go directly to students who the recipients, of these educational services. And this can, in a way, also enhance enrollment, in universities, and of course improve generally the educational status of Nigeria. Having said that, I believe that these are things that will still go to the National Assembly, and some of these issues will be argued at. But I need to underscore that historically, most of these agencies, most of these extra ministerial agencies, actually are a creation of the military. And I find many of them absolutely unnecessary, because they can actually be departments, in the various existing ministries and agencies. Having said that, it remains to be seen when you look at this pari passu the recommendations of the Oronsaye panel, which this government has promised to implement. It remains to be seen which of these agencies will eventually survive. But I think that we should begin to look beyond this tax reform and also look at reforms in our educational system. I always advocated for a situation where our universities, our public universities, have autonomy, complete autonomy, whereby they can generate, their own funds and also manage, govern themselves. I mean, this is a standard in the countries that we look forward to. Educational institutions, particularly universities, are not cost centers to government. They're actually revenue generating potentials, for government. And we can see it all around us with what the private universities, are doing. I'm not suggesting by any stretch of imagination that public universities should go the way of private universities by charging millions of naira in terms of tuitions and the rest of it. But I believe that if our tertiary institutions, our eggheads in our tertiary institutions put on their thinking caps, there are several ways that they can generate revenue internally.
Absolutely, Mr. Makwadero. And that's a conversation we've had for many years. It's been difficult winning, some of these establishments from direct government funding. The implication of it that we've heard from stakeholders is what you referred to earlier, that people will have to pay more, if you completely ask them to fend for themselves. And it's why they say some of government policies haven't been quite popular with many Nigerians. We are used to some of the systems for so long. And
yeah, but in reality, I'm sorry to put it, in reality, students in public universities are paying so much that are not visible. Because, I have friends who have expressed regret that they sent their children to public university because they ended up spending more time, they ended up spending more money, that even though those monies don't come as tuition, right? They come in form of different other, nomenclatures. So This is an argument, like you said, that maybe moving forward we can engage in.
Absolutely.
But I have no doubt that I think that's the way to go.
But as we speak now, ASU has labeled the move illegal, vowing to resist any attempt to divert funds from TED Fund to other agencies not recognized by the act establishing the fund in 2011. So even if federal government did not have the NGF to battle with, they were going to have ASU to also contend with if this bill had seen the light of the day. The governors have now said they would support the continuation of this legislative process at the National Assembly, and we expect that that will eventually culminate in the passage of the tax reform bills. Do you see a smooth sail from now? Because in his maiden media chat, the president did mention he was quite adamant about the bill, but though he expressed that he was willing to also open up to some form of concession.
Yes, I read the communique, resulting from yesterday's meeting by the Nigerian Governors Forum on the handle of Mr. Taiwo Oyedele. And the opening paragraph of that communique indicates that indeed there was a sort of bilateral, discussion between the committee and the Nigerian Governors Forum. I do not know to what extent the committee was involved in arriving at the proposals, but what that indicates is that if the deliberations on the tax reform bills at the two chambers of the National Assembly was going to be rancorous, what happened yesterday, is an assurance that it will be smoother than we expected. It might not be as smooth as it is because I foresee that there will still be some tinkering with the formula suggested, by the Nigerian Governors Forum, but maybe not by much going forward.
And the body language is also very quite loud from the governors even prior to the meeting yesterday, especially from the North, who said perhaps they have reached some concession and they are quite happy that Mr. President was willing to listen to them. I want us to talk about the political dimension to this bill from what we saw since 2024. What does that say about Nigeria, as a nation, and the importance of, you have fantastic ideas beyond lobbying within the National Assembly. It appears there are some more critical stakeholders even outside that complex.
I think the allegory I will use, for this situation is that of a very sick adult, not child, a very sick adult who is afraid of being injected or who is afraid of being treated, with injections and medicines to cure his, malaria. And then on the other side, also, are those who deliberately wanted to make political capital out of the disagreement, which they are entitled to. I mean, they are participants in the political space. They want to latch at every opportunity to make political gains, and it is well within their rights, as much as it is well within the responsibility of people in government to also explain to the same populace what they are doing and why they are doing it. Without being speculative, let me just restrict myself to what the governor of Nasarawa State said, and that is His Excellency Governor Abdullahi Sule, that politicians in the North actually went about telling the people that government was about to impose additional tax burdens on them. And so that ordinarily will incense, people who are already trying to grapple with economic challenges. So that is from the the side of those that were seeking political gain. I will also make reference to what the former governor, the former defense minister in this country, and the former presidential candidate, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, also said in a viral video that the tax reform bill's aim is actually to divert money from Kano, to Lagos. Again, because of the level of education we have, in Nigeria, and the lack of scrutiny of news and pronouncements by people, some people also latched onto it. Good thing is that common sense, it will eventually prevail, and I believe common sense is already prevailing. What I did not join, or I didn't believe, is when I read about this North-South dichotomy, because I know of northern politicians who astutely, supported, and even non-politicians, technocrats, who astutely supported these tax reform bills. And I doubt if a census or a poll was taken that the North will vote in a particular way. I want to believe that these are things that we should expect in a diverse country like ours, that is highly political, that policies like these, especially that are strategic and very critical, will attract what it has attracted. But I think we've moved beyond that now. People have seen what it is all about, and in fact, I congratulate Mr. Oyedele, because at a point, his frustration was palpable, that we are moving you from, a good place to a better place. But you seem to be comfortable, with the status quo, and not seeing the picture that we are seeing. But I think going forward, it's one of the responsibilities of government also and its agencies to, accelerate and intensify, education and enlightenment of the people, so that the trust deficit, which is also a big factor when it comes to public sector, is reduced.
Well, I guess we'll now wait to see how the next phase unfold, hopefully not as dramatic as what we saw last year, and indeed the implementation of what Mr. President calls pro-poor laws. Strategist and governance expert Yemi Makpadero, thank you so much for talking to us on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right. We are monitoring developments very closely in the Lagos State House of Assembly following the impeachment of Mr. Speaker last week. The Madam Speaker, the very first female speaker in Lagos, has now announced some new key officers into the committees that were dissolved after the impeachment of Obasa last week. He's announced Temitope Adewale Adedeji as the new majority leader of the 10th Assembly. Let's bring you some live updates from the floor of the Lagos State House of Assembly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand to bring a commiseration message from Major Milfeludi as a whole, and by extension, the entire Badagry division. I just say he's a well-known person, a grassroots in the division. In fact, he's a developer of politicians. A lot of us as politicians pass through this man, apart from him being a civil servant. My encounter with him also showed that he's a peace lover. After election, he's only the one that leads the reconciliation committee within that division. And the result of his reconciliation normally turns into victory for our party. So I want to also support Honorable Isha for what he has said, that this House, apart from writing letter, we should make a delegation to his family to commiserate with them. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this.
Thank you. Also, I would also like to commiserate with the people of Badagry, APC, the GSC, and Lagosians in general on the demise of one of our leaders, Pa Sonny Ajose. He was a very good friend of this house. He has always been supportive, and I pray that God should grant him internal rest. On that note, Mr. Acting Clerk, let us do a condolence letter to his family, the party, and the GSA. I would also like us to observe a minute silence for his departed soul. Thank you. Clerk, please, do the thank you first.
Speaker Mojisola Miranda overseeing perhaps a meeting plenary at the Lagos State House of Assembly. She's also announced some key officers earlier on. We're following development closely. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll turn our attention to the role of public-private partnership and CSR has to play in national development. Stay with us, everyone.
Good morning, Marina Station and all the passengers. Efficient, it's comfortable.
This development will go a long way in reducing congestion and emission.
The trains are long-term solution to Lagos traffic challenges.
This is where we take the final, decisions on policies, programs of government. I will have to ensure that, the narration of Lagos as a PLC is taken very, very seriously.
This is a major pedestrian bridge linking Oyibo here to Apapa Road over there.
With this overpass, we are providing what we call permanent solution.
This place is one of the most dangerous areas at the biosecurity environment.
This can go into the news and every crimes of your neighborhood.
Our goal is to remain as Africa's model megacity, to move our GDP from the 5-6 position to the 3rd position, and we believe it's achievable with all the commitments we have.
Explore the city of Lagos, where dreams are made and possibilities are endless. Amadedoja Salamadini. I live in Lagos, inside Lagos.
In this second half, we're turning our attention to the critical role public-private partnerships and corporate social responsibility play in driving national development in Nigeria. As our nation continues to navigate the complexities of economic growth, poverty reduction and sustainable development, it's becoming increasingly clear that the private sector must continue to play a vital role in complementing government efforts. And we've seen that play out in developed countries like Sweden, for instance, where I'm sure you know the public-private partnerships there have had significant impact and been very instrumental to driving innovation, entrepreneurship and social progress. Joining me today to help see development through the lens of social investment is Odunayo Sawyer, a CSR and public-private partnership expert. Ms. Sawyer is the Executive Director, MTN Foundation. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Nifemi, for having me.
Happy New Year.
The same to you.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering, is there a secret to looking this young when I'm 52?
Wow. I'll tell you the secret after this.
Okay, awesome. You don't want to share it with them?
No.
So I saw your foundation, Clock 20, recently. And, I was there and I saw a lot of very impactful things you've done, no doubt. But you know, there are some who would say, it's MTN after all, so, you know, they're making all the money. They should also make as much impact. I'm wondering how you react to, you know, thoughts like that, that the initiatives are merely a drop in the ocean and that you're obligated to actually give back because of your size and your influence.
Well, yes, people make those comments, and what I tell them is that companies have no obligations to, you know, do CSR. At the foundation, we call it, in MTN, we call it CSI, because they are investments. However, a company that understands the reason why it's in business, understands the reason why it must give back to the communities it operates in. And when people say that, you know, it's a function of, the foundation is just one part of MTN. Virtually everything MTN does is almost like a CSI. You know, I could go on and reel out a lot of other things that we do that doesn't necessarily sit under the foundation. But at MTN, we're driven by core belief that everyone deserves the benefits of a modern connected life. And the connectivity is way beyond data, voice, as we know it. Is about recognizing our role in being custodians of power that can enable people connect with their own aspirations. So you'll find that in a lot of other things that we do in the company.
I had a CEO once said, we're not doing CSR because it's a noble deed. We're doing it because the sustainability of our business relies on it. So what's the philosophy these days? Doing good or a business model?
Well, I think it's a double-edged sword. And when you do one, it leads to the others. Now, business has matured over the years, even, you know, thought leadership in business. And, you know, it started from business, the only thing a business does is to make profit. But as businesses also relooked, you know, their essence, their meaning, they realized that it was important for them to be active participants within the communities that they operate. And so we started having theories like the triple bottom line theory that talks about the people, the planet, and then the profit. And there's the donut economics, and I could go on. But all is just saying that, you know what, for us to thrive as a business, our communities must thrive first. Indeed. Because you see, as a business, when your community is thriving, you hire from that community. You are a part of that community, you know. And so by moving the community forward, you are inadvertently really moving your
it is also good business
forward.
It is good business for you, because these days they say customers place premium on spending money on businesses that do CRS.
Oh yes, customers, investors, and even prospective customers. And by prospective customers, I mean the very young generation. A survey was done, and, you know, people in the university, and the feedback was that they would buy from a company, a business that gives back to the society, that is not just about profits. And I see that in my home. My children don't buy certain things because they'll tell you, Mommy, you know, it seems there was a news around child labor, around this and all of that. So really, that's what it is.
What's your evaluation as an expert in the industry of the current state of CSR in Nigeria and how it compares with global best practice?
In Nigeria, we're not doing badly, I must say. You have a lot of CSR initiatives. Permit me to use CSI, you know, that's what I see it as. We have a lot of CSI initiatives that have really, really contributed to Nigeria achieving or recording some form of achievement when it comes to the Sustainable Development Goals. And really, the SDGs are not just about the United Nations. They're just a framework for development for any country that really wants to, you know, do well by its people and all of that. So in Nigeria, it's also come a long way. It's come from our social responsibility has come from even, you know, the little things we do in our families, where someone pays the school fees of others. That's something socially responsible within your family. Now, bringing it to business, you find that CSR has contributed through youth development. women entrepreneurship, and, you know, education in ensuring that a lot of things happen. And I can give you a few examples from the foundation. So for us at the foundation, we envision a Nigeria where no community is left behind, and we know we can't do it alone. But some of the things we do, over like 15 years, we've continued to give scholarships to young Nigerians studying STEM subjects and blind Nigerians in public universities. And you've seen what we've also done beyond just giving the scholarships is to give them an edge by the time they get into the labor market. So right now, they have access to leverage certain certifications from Microsoft and Coursera, fully paid for by MTN through the foundation, and they earn the certifications and they are better off. They have few opportunities for internships, and that's building a well-rounded individual, and then they can function better when they get into the labor market. And I could go on. We also have interventions in healthcare.
No, you'll come back to talk about that when you pay for it. But I'm wondering what you think, because earlier on you mentioned that your business is not obligated to do it. Some would say that's not how it is in developed countries, that perhaps we need a more robust regulatory framework. Imagine if every multinational in Nigeria is doing what you are doing. Imagine how much relief it will bring to government, but much more impact that it will have on our people.
Yeah, but one thing you need to understand is that it's a journey. So when I say the business is not obligated, what I mean is it takes a business really looking inwards and saying, we want to do this. And I'll still use MTN as an example. This journey started in 2004. Even in developed countries, there are organizations you call B Corp, benefit corporations. It's not every organization that is a member. So it's difficult to compel CSI. I think what needs to be done is to give people reasons why, to give organizations reasons why they should do that and how it positively impacts.
Instead of compelling them to do it.
Yes, their business. And how can that be done? The government can come up with incentives for companies that do, you know, actively participate in the CSI space. Incentives like tax incentives. And, you know, you recognize such companies, and everybody wants to be recognized. Everybody wants to be seen to be adding value beyond profits back to the community. So I say it's a journey. And I believe that, you know, as many organizations watching will find a reason, you know, to really, you know, jumpstart CSI.
I'm wondering what the current status is with government involvement. Do you get from incentive from government because of what you do?
What I would say is that we have partnerships with the government. So we run, and I know a few other foundations or CSI, corporate organization-owned CSIs that partner with government. So there's partnership, there's a private-public sector partnership, especially in the areas of health and also youth development. So, you know, coming together, brainstorming, policy-wise, and also actual implementation, having boots on ground to implement these things.
How do you think businesses can identify areas of impact? You know, taking Nigeria, for example, because it's beyond just doing something. It's doing something sustainable and something that you can get good feedback that it's actually having impact.
So I think, and forgive me, I'm not paying this money, but I will still use MTN Foundation as an example. For us, it's critical, and I believe for every organization, we look at what we do through the lens of the UN SDGs and Nigeria's national priorities, which really, if I have to mention three things, would be around health, education, and maybe community development. And so we look at this, and through that, we've been able to establish that that's how we can contribute, you know, to government's efforts, because the government can't do it alone. Sometime last year, I listened to the Deputy Secretary General of the UN, our own Mrs. Amina Mohammed, say that Nigeria needs $10 billion annually to, if we're to even scratch the surface of the SDGs. The government alone will not do that. And so for every organization, look at the SDGs, because it's a fantastic framework, and then look at the national priorities of Nigeria. Now, there's the other debate I hope I'm not preempting you, but there's the other debate around, should you do CSI in your own...
where your business is located.
Yes, or beyond the location. Should the scope of your CSI, should it cover your area of expertise? So if you're a health organization, do your CSI only in health. And nothing is cast in stone. You can decide to do it where you have area of expertise, but you can also decide to do it, aligning with the national priorities. Because for MTN Foundation, we largely we don't restrict it to technology or communications. It's much more beyond that.
Full disclosure, I think I'm a beneficiary of that. With the MIP project, I think it's fantastic. About 20 of us, Nigerian journalists, were taken to South Africa last year. We were at the Pan Atlantic University for about 6 months. It's personally the best I've had yet. So I'm hoping that you guys will continue with that.
Yeah, we should. And the good thing is, when you look at that, we're not a news company, we're not into that. But
exactly.
Like I said, we believe that, everyone deserves the benefits of a modern connected life. The illumination you got, I'm sure has impacted yourself, your family, and your colleagues. And that's why I say in MTN, and I dare say a lot of other corporate organizations, a lot of things here and there really is CSI.
Indeed. So how do you think startups and small businesses can get on board? Is this something you have to wait till you become a multinational, or you think you can begin to structure it even at the startup level?
It's, good you asked this question. I was on call with a former colleague of mine years back. We're colleagues, and we're talking, and she says she wanted to go into, CSI. But the instructive thing about her own experience is that she's already doing it. She does it by herself, reaching out to people and all of that. So you don't have to be big. You don't have to be MTN or a very big organization. You don't have to be TVC to go to do some form of CSI. It should come naturally. And I believe that our DNA as Nigerians is that we're kind people. We empathize with each other. We want the other person to be better. So as a startup, understand from day one that as much as you're taking value from the environment, the community, you have to give back. Because one thing I didn't say earlier is that organizations need a social license to operate. And that social license you get by how important a place you have found in the community through what you do for them, not only what you take from them. So you don't have to be big. A small, and you do it by what you can afford to do. A small startup, how much of your baby profit after tax can you set aside? If you're an education startup, do you want to create something free, for young people, for them to learn and things like that? So it doesn't have to cost an arm, and a leg.
So you've spoken about how you ensure your initiatives align with the needs of local communities, contributing to sustainable development goals. But how do you manage expectations in these communities? Because, like Oliver Twist, everyone wants more.
Yes, and that's why you have to do something called the gap analysis. You have to do a baseline. When you engage the communities, you go into a community and you see it, because we really go into the very remote areas of Nigeria. Excuse me. You see it. They need water, they need light, they need healthcare and all of that. And then but you have to engage with them, and let them know. You also do a little bit of study to say what exactly is it that if you do for these people, it will turn the tide for them. And there are times they tell you, what you found out through your own assessment is not what they think is important to them. And that's where stakeholder management, comes in, and you're able to agree with them at times or help them to agree with you in as much as you can establish that the need exists. So I think doing a needs assessment, engaging first with the communities, because it's very important. Because you could do something there and they really don't appreciate it, not because they're bad people.
You can give them roads when what they want is water.
Yes. Or you can give them water when what they really want now is some maternal intervention in healthcare, in maternal healthcare. So you have to understand and carry them along. Help them to own the interventions. Don't come at them like, you know, the big brother, you're trying to save the world. Because at the end of the day, if they shut their community to you, that's it.
Sounds like you're saying every business should come on board, and we should all stop complaining about this government and see how we can help, right?
I agree. That's what it is. We need to, you know, get a lot more corporate organizations to look into CSI, and they won't really see the impact on their business.
Thank you so much for coming. Odunayo Soya is Executive Director, MTN Foundation. Always a lovely time having this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. All right, the conversation continues, everyone. What a month it's been. I've been on this show for about a month, but I've got good news. I saw Yori Folari, fondly called Uncle Yori, in the newsroom yesterday, and it looks like 10 years younger than his age. He's fired up, ready to resume on Monday, and I'm so glad to leave the show so I can get some rest. But I'll be back by 6 p.m. on Beyond 100 Days. Thank you so much for watching, and see you some other time. Bye for now.
Hello, TVC Communications. How can I help?
What makes TVC the right choice for my business?
Excellent question, sir. Let me share some exciting facts with you.
Start your day on TVC Entertainment with Wake Up Nigeria, a family and lifestyle show. Your view empowers women globally.
It's your view, let it count.
Entertainment Splash delivers the hottest celebrity trends. On TVC News, we keep you informed with breaking news and in-depth analysis of events shaping the world.
I will continue to speak the truth.
TVC News at 7 and TVC News at 10 p.m. delivers the most important stories of the day. Max FM, your hit music radio station, captivates listeners daily across Lagos and Abuja, making every commute more enjoyable. Adaba 88.9 FM is not left out, as it is the voice of Southwest. And on TVC Digital, we reach to million viewers daily. All together, pulls in over 17 million viewers daily. Contact us on 0707-272-8338 or marketing at tvccommunications.tv. Partner with TVC Communications today. Let's grow together.
The following is a paid presentation by ShopX TV. It's ShopX Bonanza time. ShopX TV is thrilled to offer an exclusive giveaway of up to 30% on the amazing CookX Air Fryer Oven from now till January 31st, 2025. Our incredible CookX 10-inch